The Painting, a short story in 4 acts by Dale Dapkins. Act 1. The painter showed up at the corner of Whitehead and South, where he set up in the shade of the big royal poignant tree. It was Friday noon. The poinciana was in full riotous bloom. Our street was only a few blocks from the southernmost point, but far enough he must have known the cops wouldn't harass him there. He was a little guy with a pencil-thin mustache, carrying a folded easel. Along with his easel, he carried what he called his magic wooden box, containing all kinds of stuff: plants, paints, brushes, post-it notes, a small jar of Hellman's mayo, a knife, a slice of bread, and a fresh red tomato from which he made a sandwich for lunch. I suspected he was autistic or OCD because it took him close to an hour to arrange his brushes and knives, small to large. Paints had to be all blues together, all greens, all yellows together, on top of that small, waist-high, paint-slathered wooden box with its collapsible legs. The first time I walked my schnoodle, Bob, past the painter, I had to veer away, because Bob started barking at the brown rabbit the painter had on a leash. Big sucker. Must have weighed 20 pounds. The painter lifted his bunny up to the safety of his arms and went on about his business. He smiled at me, though. Everybody loves a smiler, right? Next time you see a politician on TV, you'll notice he's smiling. Always smiling when he's screwing you. And did you ever notice how almost every woman you see riding a bicycle is smiling too? I'm just saying. Anyway, this painter smiled and offered his hand for Bob to sniff. Bob nosed the hand and let the guy pat his head. That's unusual because Bob barks and snarls at our UPS guy, who also has a little pencil mustache. But see, the UPS guy never smiles. I don't have a webcam scanning my front door like my neighbor, so I don't know what went down between Bob and this man in brown. This much I do know. UPS guy does not push kibble through the mail slot like the mail lady does. Dolores. Bob loves Dolores. He whines like a baby when she gets within a block of the house. Bob's a whore for kibble. Act 2. Saturday morning, as Bob and I head out for our walk, the painter is arranging his stand. We go around the block to visit the tall puffgrass patch upon which Bob rubs his junk before doing his business, both 1 and 2. And as we walk by on our return, I see the painter is applying dabs of gray to his canvas, creating a sidewalk and street corner. This street corner. He's already got the royal poinciana roughed in and its brilliant orange blossoms. We stop to chat. Bob, for some reason, has accepted the rabbit and sniffs his ears, then his butt. They call me Thomas. You can call me Tom, the painter says, smiling. Glad to meet you. I'm Mike, I say, grabbing his small hand to shake. I feel him try to pull from my grasp. But my father taught me to grip a man's hand firm with both hands. Tom's smile has suddenly become a grimace of a naked man walking through a feces-filled gutter in Calcutta, a man who can feel germs hopping off my palm onto his, crawling to find a suitable spot to hook mandibles and tear open flesh and deposit slimy eggs in his bloodstream. Wrenching free, he says, Sorry, sir. As a rule, I avoid shaking hands. Colds, flu, strep. They all get passed hand to hand, you know. Doctors proved the connection 1,000,000 times. He opens his wooden box, extracting a washcloth, which he sprays with Lysol. He then splashes it from a little translucent bottle hand-labeled 50% Clorox solution. He scrubs his hands. Then he towels off with 3 sterile hospital tissues. His smile is valiant, but crooked and twitching. Act 3. Next day, when Bob and I walk past the artist named Tom on our way to Bob's morning puff grass ablutions, I see he's wearing blue nitrile rubber gloves and is smiling at a group of tourists. A woman with a body like a kitchen range wears an oversized Ohio State Buckeyes t-shirt. Tom waves his brush in our direction and smiles. "Hi," I say, and try to keep walking. But Bob has other ideas. He pulls on his leash until we're beside the rabbits, sniffing him as if they're old buddies. And without warning, Bob inhales the compliant hare's head all the way up to the ears. The rabbit exposes long yellow teeth in what looks like a smile. With rabbit head in mouth, Bob begins a keening whine, which can only mean one thing. Still holding the rabbit's head in his mouth, Bob deftly swings his rear end around like a Brazilian Muay Thai wrestler and begins humping the hare for maybe 10 seconds before Tom cries, "Oh my God!" and reaches down to haul up his pet. The rabbit's head is matted with saliva and his rear is not much better. Though Bob is the sexual transgressor here, Bob manages to look offended. Tom is holding the rabbit, still smiling, talking to the tourists. Football lady gives me dirty looks. "Hey, I wasn't the one humping the rabbit, lady." Then she eyes Tom's rubber gloves and curls her lip. Tom notices and shoots her a look of his own, which says, "Okay, lady, fine. But don't call me when they slam you on a gurney with viral pneumonia and take you away with sirens blaring." And just as Tom's smile returns, my neighbor Jerome, ex-military, appears at my side. "Sup, dude?" Unlike Tom, Jerome never smiles. Every time we see each other, Jerome reminds me he spent 9 years in the Marine Air Force or something. Another thing, Jerome always wears pajamas, Desert Storm camo. I've seen him in Home Depot wearing PJ shorts. But this is Key West. People dress funny. I gotta tell you, though, there's something wrong with Jerome beside the PJs, and his gray plastic leg prosthesis, which he taps constantly with an aluminum cane. I think Jerome's got Asperger's. I'm sorry, but I love saying that word. Asperger syndrome. Asperger's. That's the last thing I'd want to have, just because of the name. Fortunately, it's not contagious. "Semper Fi," Jerome says, sneering and tapping his leg. Several times, Jerome has invited me over to his fortress of a house for highballs. He has high-intensity lights protecting his yard at night. All night. While up on my roof repairing hurricane-damaged shingles, I've seen the ring of razor wire surrounding his roof vents. I've declined the drink invites. Jerome seems to like Bob and always tries to pet him. But as usual, Bob cringes and slinks behind my legs. "What's with this hippie hanging out over here?" Jerome asks from the corner of his mouth, where a hand-rolled cigarette dangles. "You ask me, I say we call the cops." Suddenly I go from distrusting Tom to defending him. It makes no sense, but I say, "He's okay. I know the guy. Kind of a friend of mine. Name's Tom." Then I lie. He's a Nam vet. Jerome looks at me like I just told him John Glenn was my gay lover. He tries to spit out a flake of tobacco stuck on his lower lip, flicking his cigarette butt into the street and shaking his head at the massive world of problems resulting from a growing lack of discipline. Jerome walks back through the demilitarized plant-free zone that is his front yard. He passes hurricane shutters, which are permanently bolted shut, and goes inside. He's told me he doesn't sleep much anymore. He just watches John Wayne movies and sips highballs through a straw most days into the night. Act 4. Next day, I'm surprised at the size of the crowd. 10, 12, mostly tourists, but a few artsy locals. Across the street, Jerome stands, hands on hips, head cocked questioningly. I sidle nearer and see progress in the painting. Tom has captured the orange and yellow explosion of blossoms in the poignant tree beautifully. He's tinted the air a gorgeous yellow-orange, very Key West. Pastel houses have been colored in with windows and doors. I see Jerome's place and a little dog and a rabbit. But what's caught the crowd's attention is the drama Tom has captured with his figures. Half-finished men, women, and children in the painting are all running this way and that. A lady riding a bicycle has fallen in the street. Those whose faces he's completed have eyes and mouths open wide. Smiling, Tom ignores questions from the crowd, which by the end of the day has grown to 20, 30 buzzing admirers. A reporter for The Citizen crouches on one knee snapping pictures. Tom is painting faster. His arm slashes and stabs like an Olympic fencer's épée. His painting is nearly complete. He slathers red, blood red, on figures in the painting running away and on bodies lying in the street. Expressions of panic taint the faces in the painting. Tom smiles. He is so engrossed he ignores a man wearing Ron John cargo shorts and flip-flops who insists he wants to buy the artwork. And this is the third time now he's asked how much it cost. When Tom ignores him the fourth time, the man whines, "What the hell are you doing here if you don't want to sell your goddamn piece of shit painting?" The man angrily turns on his flip-flops and walks away. Tom sees me and smiles. With one big swipe of his red brush, he finishes the painting. To a roar of approval from the crowd. Still smiling, Tom opens his wooden cabinet. He pulls out a large automatic pistol with an extended magazine and a silencer. He whirls toward the disgruntled would-be client and fires at his retreating back. The surprisingly quiet but crisp spit from the pistol stuns the crowd. Tom continues to fire, twice, 3 times, at the fallen body, which quivers now with each round, smashing into the fat flesh. Blood pools on the pavement around the man's quivering head. Screams erupt. The crowd turns and runs. An older lady on a bicycle falls over, taking a man down with her. Tom, still smiling, drills her in the back. Tom fires and fires until almost everyone in the crowd is lying in the street screaming or quiet. That's when Jerome, wearing pajamas, runs out from his house firing an AK-47. Bang, bang, bang! Bullets zing past by my head. I dive to the ground. Tom levels his pistol and aims. It takes him 3 shots to drop Jerome with a bullet through the forehead. Tom turns and points the smoking pistol at me. He looks around at the carnage. Then he smiles. "I'm not going to shoot you," he says. "Go on. You can get up." He places the pistol on the wooden tray and picks up the rabbit by its ears with one hand. With the other, he takes the painting off the easel, still smiling. He hands the canvas to me. He also hands me the rabbit, which I take with trembling hands. I feel like I'm sleepwalking and can't feel my toes. "Do you like it?" he asks, looking at the painting. I look at the painting. My God, he's captured the scene of carnage around us. "I guess I'm what they call a new realist," he says. "Why don't you keep it?" He then turns and walks behind the royal poignant tree. The rabbit jumps from my arms, trying to follow him, and as I turn to retrieve the hare, a deafening blast slams me to the ground. The backs of my eyelids burn bright orange and yellow. The blast blows all the leaves and flower petals from the royal poignant to drift in an unusual red mist as if some pointillist like Seurat painted the air. There's an odd chemical smell. My ears ring. They hurt. My hands come away bloody after rubbing my numb ears. I don't remember catching the rabbit, but I stumbled toward my house, carrying him under my left arm. With the other, I gripped the painting tight against my body. I barely hear the approaching sirens. There are red smudges on my shirt from the still wet oil paint. Dragging his leash and occasionally looking behind, Bob follows. He's such a good dog. Thank you.